What about there? Ooh. Are we live now on YouTube? See, this does not back up persistent stream key. Yeah, even if you go live on this Facebook group, it does live video starting. Oh, does it say it's starting? Well, let's see. Is it going to start? Is it actually going to connect to? Is it going to connect the same? Let's see. Is it actually going to connect to the thing? No, it is not. See, this just makes no damn sense. I swear. Sometimes maybe you got to send a little signal over here. No. Whatever. Just have to go to Instagram. Try to save it. I try to save it for YouTube. It just does not work. I apologize. One of these days we will get it figured out. Maybe. I don't know. But on that note, not that anybody ever really watches these on YouTube anyways. I don't really think anybody actually watches these on YouTube. But if you do, I always do it just in case, because you guys know, you guys are my old OGs. But let's go live on Instagram. All right, let's do this. Start recording, let's get it. Let me get you down here. Hello, hello, hello. Let me get some of my water here. And before we even get into how to use your breath, before we get into how to actually utilize your breath to reduce some of your stress, I want to talk about what the hell we're even doing this week, right? So this week we are trying to figure out ways to reduce our stress. They're like when my cat walks in here, get out of here. So what we want to do is figure out ways that we can use our breath, because guess what? The breath is one of the easiest things that we got to reduce the stress that we're in. And the best part about it is, I don't know if you've ever read this book. It's going to be backwards for you, but it's a book called Breath by James Nestor, and I do have it in my Amazon store if you ever want to read it. But after I've read this book probably 3 times, and one of the things that always resonated with me, which was really good, was the breathing techniques that we have in the back of the book. And I want to show you, and I want to walk through these with us together. So if you're interested in trying to do some of these techniques together, and now let me know in the chat before we even get started, have you ever done any breath work yet? You have that and haven't read it yet? Well, we're going to go through some of the techniques in here, right? And a lot of them stem from yoga techniques, yoga breathing techniques, ujjayi breathing. Some of these I've done multiple times, like the alternate nostril, the coherent breathing, the breathing coordination. But we're going to go through some of these, and we're actually going to do them together. So if you're ready to try these together, come on down. Like we're in fucking, well, who said come on down? The Price is Right, right? That's how I'm aging myself. Bob Barker. Come on down. So come on down. We're going to figure out how to utilize the breath. We're going to figure out how to utilize some different types of breathing techniques to help us reduce stress. So let me know if, before we get started, have you ever heard of the term breath work? As you can see, I'm sitting on my stability ball. Have you ever heard of the term breath work? Now, I know it's delayed, so I'll give you some time. Have you ever heard of the term breath work? Now, if you've ever practiced yoga, if you've ever practiced Pilates, which I think a lot of us, on Sundays we do, you find out that a lot of your movements that I always talk about is technically, that's kind of like a breath work, right? That's kind of breath work using, a vinyasa practice, right? Inhaling up, exhaling, sinking down is a variation of breath work. But when we go ahead and actually use and we dedicate our mind and our consciousness to our breath, this is where the term breath work really comes in. Teresa, no, you never heard of it? Okay, well, we're going to talk about it today. So one of the first ones we're going to do is very easy. So hopefully if you have any allergies, this is a very good one for you. Let me, as I'm sitting up on one of the things that we're going to do is I want you to get your thumb, and we're going to get our middle finger. Now you can use your ring finger as well. It depends on how big your hand is, essentially. So way that we do this is we're going to get our thumb, and we're going to put it around, we're going to squash and crush our left nostril or our right nostril, depending on what hand you're using. It doesn't matter, right? But we're going to close one nostril, and I want you to go ahead and you're going to inhale through that one open nasal passage. You're going to take a deep inhale, and I'm going to walk you through this. You don't have to do it right now. I'm going to walk you through it. But we're going to inhale through this nose. And then with our middle finger or our ring finger, we're actually going to close that nostril, open up the opposite one, and exhale out. Crazy. It's crazy. It's called alternate nostril breathing. Now, this is something that we do in yoga class. And honestly, we never really done that in as many yoga classes that we've done. Maybe we'll do it this week. We'll do a little bit of yoga practice. But I want you to try this. One hand, let's do it all together with your right hand. Right hand, you're going to get your right thumb on your right nostril. Take a deep inhale. And then I want you to close that nostril with your middle finger or your ring finger. Open it up and then exhale out through the right nostril. And essentially you would do the same thing, right? You would stay here. Inhale through that nostril, close with your thumb, and then exhale. I realize I'm doing this and my hand is like in my face. Here, this is how you do this breathing technique, and you can't even see what the hell is going on, right? So maybe I'll show you. We'll show you from the side here, right? So I want you to try this together, and it might take a little bit to figure out. So this is the first one we're going to try to practice, and we're not going to move on until we all get this together, right? So we're going to try right thumb. With your right thumb, we're going to put it on our right nostril. We're going to inhale through the left nose, the left nasal passage. So take a deep inhale. And then you're going to close that nostril with your ring finger or your middle finger. And then you're going to exhale out through the right nasal passage. And then you inhale, close, exhale, out. Now, that is what we call alternate nostril breathing. Now, let me know in the chat if you tried this. Got it, right? Did you try it, right? Now, the thing is when you do this alternate nostril breathing, what you find is that it actually helps lower your blood pressure. Why? Because when your breath is actually tied to your nervous system. So when your breath is tied to your nervous system, we realize that if you're in a state of like fight or flight, we realize that we can actually calm ourselves down. Now, if you're in an argument with somebody, are you just going to sit here and put your hand to your nose and start, and breathe? They're going to be like, what the hell's wrong with you? But it will diffuse the situation probably, right? But this is something that you can do like when you give yourself some space, right? We talked yesterday about having like a bedtime routine, having a AM routine, right? So maybe when you're doing your meditation, you have one nostril closed, you got the music going, you close, right? And you do maybe 10 of these rounds. And you see how you feel, right? Well, the thing is I know how you're going to feel. You're going to feel that you're going to feel great is essentially what you're going to do. And if we look through the book, right, what he states, and this is a simple one, what he states is the standard pranayama technique, which is a yoga term for breath, is it allows improved lung function, lowers the heart rate, the blood pressure, and sympathetic stress. Now, if you don't know what sympathetic is, you have not like I'm sympathizing for you. You have a parasympathetic and a sympathetic response, which is your nervous system, right? It's up or down, fight or flight is essentially what that is. So what you think about is that it says also it's a proven and effective technique to employ before a meeting, an event, or sleep, right? We just talked about that. So maybe you think the next time you have a meeting, maybe the next time you're at an event, maybe the next time you have to do a presentation, you're doing some alternate nostril breathing, and next thing you know, you're ready to kick some ass, right? Let's be real. So that's just the first one. That's the first one we're looking through. Now, the second one I really want to go through is something called coherent breathing. Now, coherent breathing is a technique that I've used many times in, I think more or less in life, But we do this a lot of times. See if I can get this right here. We do this a lot of times whenever we are in our yoga practice, right? So whenever we do our yoga practice, a place where you can actually feel some coherence is I want you to actually sit up nice and tall. We did this a couple of weeks ago. Let me show you from the side. Is that we sit up nice and tall. We roll our shoulders back. So we don't try to breathe like this, right? We want to roll our shoulders back, lift our chest up. Now, I don't want you like doing that, but I want you to sit here and inhale softly through the nose for 5.5 seconds. So you go. And when you get to the very top, without pausing, I want you to softly exhale. So it's an in, and it's through the lips. So perched lips, like you're, I guess you're, sucking on a straw essentially, right? And you want to bring the belly and the lungs completely empty. And you feel your core essentially turn on, right? This is how we want to do it. And then you go ahead and you inhale through the nose. 5.5 seconds. You don't pause at the top. You feel the breath. You feel your chest rise. And then you exhale. And when you exhale, you're trying not to collapse yourself as well, right? You're trying to inhale up. You don't want to exhale and deflate. You want to keep yourself nice and tall. So that's why standing up, that's why you see I have my hands right here as I'm sitting on the stability ball. A lot of times if you see other meditations, right, you're sitting in a cross-legged pose, but you have your hands here to keep yourself up nice and tall. It's just a simple thing. You can either do, everybody's always seen this, but you can have your hands down. You can ground with your thumb and your ring finger. There's some science that states depending on where you're grounding is depending on where you're going. So let's go ahead and take a deep breath. Let's try this. I want you to feel inhale. So you close your eyes. We inhale through the nose for 5.5 seconds. And I want you just to feel the breath right when you do this. It goes all the way up from your diaphragm into the lungs, into the chest, into the top of the chest. It really doesn't come all the way up here, but you could feel your chest rise, your collarbone. And then as you exhale, you feel that calming breath, right? So it should be something that's up and down, up and down. And this is a very calming breath. This is going to give you some clarity, right? I think a lot of times, most people, when you're breathing, and I should do a video on this, when you're scrolling through your Instagram reels, when you're scrolling through TikTok or wherever the hell you're doing, is you actually hold your breath. It's something called screen apnea. And I want you to notice it now that you know, now that I'm telling you, I want you to notice it the next time you're doom scrolling or you're looking through reels. You actually hold your breath, right? You scroll, you're like, and then you, right? You take these like weird deep breaths, and let me know in the chat if you've ever done that, because I know damn well you have, right? Because most people do. So you go, and you hold your breath. So this is something that if you find yourself where you are working, you are scrolling, maybe just try to bring some awareness, right? And that right there is a challenge on its own, right? Because now you're unconsciously thinking of something that you're consciously thinking of something unconscious, right? Truth, Cherie, right? You do that, right? We all do that. And so the thing is what happens with that, it gets us stressed the hell out. So we want to be able to avoid doing that. And so this is something called your coherent breathing, is so that you are bringing yourself back to some coherentness, right? Bring yourself back to reality. So we just went over your alternate nostril breathing. Now, if anybody missed it, we went over alternate nostril breathing. If you're curious, what the hell is that? Just let me know, right? Just let me know. We can kind of go back over it. But this one was a little weird. It was something called, I don't know how. I really don't even know how to really even say this, but Butikeo technique. The way that they say to breathe is to train the body to breathe in line with its metabolic needs. Now, whenever I was reading this in the book, I said, I don't know what the hell does that even mean? What are you trying to say? What is that going on? But based upon times of the inhalations and the exhalations, where the way that you could do this. So one of the ways that they said that you can do this, now I know you don't have probably a stopwatch together, but luckily I do, is the way that we're going to try this is that you place a stopwatch with a second hand or a mobile phone close by. Now, you pinch both of your nostrils. Now, stay with me here. You pinch both of your nostrils closed with your thumb and your finger, and you just exhale out the mouth. Now, when you stop the exhale, you press the button, and you see how long you can hold your breath for. Now, when you feel the first time where like, oh my gosh, I need to go and take an inhale, you note that, right? You note that. Now, we can do this together. Just want to make sure that you're not going to pass the fuck out, right? We don't need you passing out. I don't want you setting any land speed records. But whenever I did this, and I did this with clients many years ago, is that you find that you can actually hold your breath. Once you practice this, the first time we did it, it was like 20 seconds. It was like a struggle. It was like, holy shit. But then we did it again the second time, just the second time, right in a row. It was like 40. It was 60. And the thing is you realize that you can actually hold your breath, but it's actually more expanding the lungs, because most of us, based upon what we just talked about beforehand, we only really breathe into like half of our lungs. Now, you ever hear of like nose breather, mouth breather? People talk about that. It's essentially you're just breathing into like this part of your lung. You're not actually filling up your whole lungs. And this is what's good about yoga and Pilates, is that right, you feel your core, that deep diaphragmic breathing, that is actually filling up your core. So the way that they say to do this is to kind of get back into that is after you've done that big inhale, close, exhale out, after that last thing, you touch the button to see how long you're breathing, right? And that first breath in after the controlled pause is controlled and relaxed. If it's labored, if it's gasping, if it's holding too long, you have to start it all over again, because a lot of it is we're trying to teach the mind, the receptors in your brain, neurologically speaking, that it's okay, right? It's okay. We're not going to die. You can do this. You got this. But one of the key components was of this boot, and I'm butchering the name. You can Google it. You can search it. It's BUTEYKO. If you want to go ahead and look at that. But what they say is this technique trains the body to do like these little mini breath holds, and being that that's something that you're doing already, if you're scrolling and doom scrolling, if you can practice this, they say, now this is just I can't say this is what the research is saying, but several medical researchers say that it can stave off your asthma. Like if you're dealing with like exercise induced asthma, sent this to water, watch less. I gotta save this, right? This is gonna be a save one. I think there's a lot of value in here. But they also said anxiety attacks, right? So if you could sit there and like you're really like sweating, your pits are sweating, you're like, holy shit, Nick. One thing that we can do is inhale, and we're gonna do a 20-second one after I'm done having this whole explanation if you're interested. But it says if you could set up timers throughout the day, every 20 minutes, every 15, it could be helpful reminders to try this, right? So if your controlled pause is 40 seconds, right? And so this is why the first number is so important, because you base everything off of that first number. So we just talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Now let's actually do this, right? So the very first thing that we need to do if you're going to practice this with us together is, and this is fun. I don't know if you guys are having fun doing this little like workshop type of, I didn't know it was going to be kind of like this, but you know, you never know what's going to happen when we do these little stress, when we start using the breath, you never know what can happen. This thing, I need to get a new chair. I'm squashing this damn stability ball, but I'm going to get my stopwatch out with the Apple Watch. So if you have an Apple Watch, get it on, make sure you have your stopwatch. We're not trying to set any land speed records, right? We're not trying to go deep diving. I will say in this book, they did talk about the breathing techniques that those those deep sea divers use to go and stab the fish. You know, those hunters with the fish. I forget who they are, but they can hold their breath for like 3 to 4 or 5 minutes, all the way down in the middle of the ocean, right? By using some of these techniques, right? So let's be real. And so I'm going to get my timer out. I'm going to find, there it is. I got so many damn timers on here. Which one is it? Okay, there it is. So the way that we're going to do this, we're going to take a deep inhale through the nose. We're going to close the nose. We're going to exhale, nice and soft. At the very end, you're going to close your mouth and hit the timer. Now, being that you don't want to sit here and I can't hold my breath for 40 seconds while you just sit here and hold me, watch me, I want you to keep holding your breath until that first chance of looking down and being like, oh my gosh, I need to take an inhale. Because then once you do that, you note that time. That is your control pause. Now this can always change. This can always be working with. But once you have your control pause is like, say it's 20 seconds, 30 seconds, you know your mini pauses are 15, right? And so if you could do those, essentially it's like a, how do we say, like a progressive overload, right? Just like if you were lifting weights, right? You start with 15, then you go to 20, then you go to 25, right? It's the same thing here, is that you'd be able to work your breath capacity. Something interesting, something that I thought was kind of cool. So here, we'll move on, you know. So if anybody's still holding their damn breath, take note of their breath. Take note of the breath if you're watching this on the replay, or you're watching this live, or you're watching this on YouTube. Take a deep breath, right? Because we can always come back to these. We can come back to these. And so this next one, now this comes more or less from yoga. So if you've ever done any, like what we talked about, the pranayamas, we talked about ujjayi breathing. There's something that in yoga they called the nose songs, right? And so nose songs essentially is like, instead, like if you're breathing in a yoga class, you might have heard your instructor say, maybe you can hear the breath through your throat, maybe you can hear it through your nose. But essentially what you want to do is when you're breathing, you're making these like kind of like monster sounds, right? Or if you've heard a ventilator at the hospital, the right? You're trying to almost mimic that sound in your body. And there's a big reason for that, right? So when you do these nose songs, essentially what you're doing is you're breathing in through the nose. And when you breathe in through the nose, you actually condition the breath. This is something that I found in the book as well. And when you condition the breath through the nose, you actually get, I think it was like 20 to 30% more oxygen in through the body. So if we know oxygen, that's going to help us get more oxygen. Think about this if you're a runner, right? This is the way to think about it. If you're just breathing through the mouth and you're right, but if you switch that and you're a runner and you start breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, you'll actually get better control of your run. You actually be able to get more breath. Same thing for anything else, right? If you're breathing, when I'm striking over here, I'm trying to only really breathe as I'm punching. So something to consider. But it's something called nitric oxide. We talked about this beforehand yesterday. Nitric oxide is released whenever you laugh, right? So you don't realize you're taking these little shallow breaths. But not only when you do this, you widen the capillaries in your nose and your bloodstream. So when you widen the capillaries, that means more oxygen can go to the blood, therefore go to the muscles, therefore more energy, right? Because oxygen, energy, right? All right, we'll leave our biology class some other day. But when you do these nose songs, what you do is you open up the capillaries in your body. And so when you're doing yoga, right, this is very good because you're able to relax into these positions and you're able to feel the breath, you're able to feel yourself into these different areas, you're able to sink into it, you're able to relax. This is why yoga becomes real relaxation. So when you're humming, it actually releases that nitric oxide. And so whenever you're doing your practice, I encourage you to be and do these types of breathing hums, right? Inhale. That's where the right? That's that type of breathing. People don't like, humming. That's the whole reason meditation is to stimulate the nitric oxide in your body. Yeah, we could talk. We need to do more research on this. We could talk more about this essentially. So one of the things that I really want you to think is when you are doing any of these breathing techniques, right? Whenever you're trying to figure out any of these different types of breathing techniques, I want you to realize you find what is best for you, right? There's something called Tummo breathing, right? Tummo breathing. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Tummo. Now this one is one where you can go and look for yourself. There are two forms of Tummo, and I found this, I wouldn't say in the book, but it's all the way in the back. If you do have this book, it's in the back of your appendix. But it's something made popular by Wim Hof. So Wim Hof a couple years ago was a guy who, the Joe Roganites, all the Roganites came out of the woodworks and was like, you got to start doing ice baths and you got to start breathing and doing all this stuff in the ice baths, right? All the Roganites are coming out. They're saying, this is what you got to do. And one of the things that, this Wim Hof, which you could look him up. He's actually like a legend in these different things, in these breathing worlds, is that he utilized this method of breathing, right? And you could look at it a little bit more. I'm not the most familiar with it because I don't do it often, but I feel like it's something that should be explained here, is that you find yourself like essentially a quiet place, and you take 30 like very deep breaths, right? Like, and essentially what you're doing is you're kind of feeling like it's almost exhausting, right? It really is exhausting. You get to about 15, 16 of them, and you start to realize that you almost feel like kind of lightheaded. But at the end of that 30th breath, you take a deep inhale and you hold it as long as you possibly can. And after you've reached basically your absolute limit, you take another deep inhale and you hold that for another 15 seconds, and then you let it all out, and then you do the whole pattern again 3 times. Now, there's people that have said by doing this, I don't know how, they said it stimulated, trips, like if you've ever done like a LSD type of, mushroom type of trip. They say that this is potentially something that could happen. People have had orgasms doing this type of breathing. So I don't know what the hell is actually in this breathing. I don't know. There's people that have been doing it for hundreds of years, I would say. But the thing is, this is breathing, right? It shows that there is so much that you can do with the breath that we don't even know we really don't even know, right? So it's one of those things that with the breath, you can go from relaxation, from where we started in the very beginning, to this method in this Tummo breathing, where people are having euphoric, visions and trips and, whatever, right? So that's all in the breath, all in everything everybody has. So it's up to you, really, because you have these different tools, you have these different things at your disposal. It's about really like using them, right? Depending on where you want to get some energy, maybe you could do some of these Tummo breathings, right? If you want to go ahead and calm yourself down, maybe you go ahead and you start getting yourself into the alternate nostril. Maybe you start doing some of these other different types of breath works. Now, I'll save this so you guys can watch this on the replay. Just let me know if you do watch this on the replay, what is your biggest takeaway? Because, I mean, we could talk about this for a very long time, but we're going to add some of this. I think this will be a good addition into our yoga class on Sundays, maybe going forward. Maybe we turn Sunday into a little bit of like a breath work, right? If you want to come in 5 minutes early on our Sundays, we're going to do this breath work, and then we can get started with our class. I don't know, something to consider. But one thing I do want to say is, if you're struggling with like breathing, you're struggling with all these different devices, or you're struggling with like, asthma, maybe you can't get a deep breath. Research has shown that if you can chew gum, right? If you can chew gum, like not just like our sugar gum, but there was in this book, right? In this book, and you could go ahead and, I'm not making this shit up, right? This is proven from this book of all these different techniques from James Nestor. And if you're curious about the book, you can buy it. I have it on my Amazon store. It's on my Amazon store. But this guy did so much research going through all this stuff that I said, holy shit, I got to go ahead. We got to start utilizing some of this stuff. So there's so much stuff that we could talk about the breath. I'm no expert in it, but it's something that I think we take. What did it say? We do 25,000 breaths a day, right? So if you can go ahead and utilize your breath, you can go ahead and calm it down, wake it up, and give yourself some energy. So let me know whether or not you're watching this on the live stream or on the replay. What's your biggest takeaway? What can we do? Do you want to do this on Sundays? You want to do a little bit of breath work? You want to add some of these techniques into our yoga practices on Sundays? You're going to add some of this stuff into your daily life. Let me know. I'm curious. And I'll see you tomorrow. Because don't forget, tomorrow we have our live stream with Dr. Natalie. She's coming back, and we're going to be talking about different types of stress. We're going to talk about specifically how stress messes up, headed to the yoga practice, 100%. So we're going to talk about how stress is specifically important to get under control if you are a woman, if you are a female, and especially, maybe I'll teach her some things, because I don't know, maybe she doesn't know about that first hour study, right? The first hour, if you are, the first hour, women have more cortisol in their bodies when they wake up than men. So that's why maybe if you find yourself always yelling and screaming in the morning, or maybe you just can't get yourself going, you might have genetics to blame for it, right? So it might be an easy fix. So we're going to talk about this tomorrow with Dr. Natalie. Hopefully you guys can stay tuned, and I'll save this and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks, everybody. All right, YouTube. That was our breathing breath work live stream. Let me know if you got any value from that. Let me know how we can be of assistance. If you need some action, you need to get yourself started, DM me Core5 on Instagram. Come over to Instagram. We got the podcast now. We got all these different things. We got all these different modalities. We got tons of free content out here for you. If you know the free stuff's that good, what's going to happen when you get yourself inside the program? You're going to start seeing some damn results. So, message me.